Hey everyone, so get ready for a long video. We're gonna convert all these images to duotones, then multi-channels and save them as Photoshop files, re-import them into InDesign, then swap out all of our type and other elements for two-color spot printing. And then finally we're gonna print separation so that we can run these through the risograph. So let's start. First thing I'm gonna do is convert my images. And as I mentioned in class, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can find the folder they all live in, especially if you're going to treat them all the same. Or you can simply click on the image or images in question, go up here to on the links palette, go edit with, and then select Photoshop. Just going to pull these guys open. There's good old Jonathan Banks, some snipers, and some weird dude in a ghillie suit. So here we go. First thing we're going to do, if they aren't already, is make them grayscale by going to image mode in Photoshop and hitting grayscale. We're going to discard the color information, again if it isn't already. And you'll notice we get a single channel, which is just gray. So from there we're actually going to go to duotone, and I'm going to click OK for now. I'm going to grab my swatches, and if you haven't already, we're going to need to load in that Riso Color Squirrely swatches.ase file by going to the Swatches palette and then load swatches. Here are all the Riso colors here. So now when I go to image mode duotone, it pulls up that dialog box. Depending on the colors I want to use in here, I can simply just select over here. So I'll double click anytime I go outside of that dialog box. I can click on the new color in question, give it a name, and we're good to go. The other thing I wanted to reference is that when you double click on the coverage map, the duotone curves, you need to adjust this so it's not at 100. Depending on the type of image and how light it is, you can go as high as maybe even 80. But you can see that there's not actually a huge jump between 80 and 65. And as we mentioned again in class, this is kind of a poor substitute for what is actually going to print out. Photoshop is just not good at hanging in there with representing subtractive color space. So make sure that you're not totally in love with this. You kind of need to maybe even run some tests prior, similar to the type trials, find out what's going to work for you. But I would say 65 is probably a good one. We're going to do the same for this, and we're going to click OK. We're also going to give these a title if they don't already have one. If you don't, it's going to excuse me, give you kind of a warning dialog that says you need to name these so that InDesign eventually knows what they're called. So once we're done, we're going to click OK. And then after that, we're going to go up to mode again and go down to multi-channel. And just so we're clear about what happened there, right now it's a duotone and it just has a single channel. If we drug this into InDesign right now, it would flatten this into what is essentially a process color version of this. So if we go to multi-channel, it's going to split those out into their individual plates. So from here, we now need to go to File, Save As, and under the format, if it's not already selected, probably it's going to be Photoshop. You need to make sure that it's Photoshop DCS 2.0, and that's going to save it as an EPS file as opposed to a PSD, and that's going to allow you to move them into Photoshop and eventually print color separations. This is super key. If for some reason that is not on, not checked, you'll get a little warning. But this is the whole point of what we're doing, is we're saving those individual spot colors. So we'll click Save. In my case, I've already saved these, so I'm going to click Replace. And then we're going to click OK. Once it's saved, we're good. Now, if we were to go into InDesign Our image has not been updated, and that is because our original image is a .jpg file, and we need to switch them out for an EPS. Anytime you save as from Photoshop, it's not going to update it. It's not going to swap it out automatically. What you'll have to do is come back in here after you've updated all of your images, and you can either relink to a folder or relink to the file extension. In our case, that's what we're going to want. So you're going to click, type EPS in there. Really, you just want to type the file name extension. And again, it's really vital that you save the files as the original name, but with a different extension for this to work. In our case, we already did, so we're going to click OK and relink. It'll think about it for a second, and you can see that it swapped it out right now to 3 color channels. If we go over to the Swatches palette, you'll see that we have these new colors coming through. What we're going to need to do now at this point is reconcile some of these colors and maybe even create some new ones. So the first thing I want to do, just to clean this up a bit, is to come up here and click on the drop down in the Swatches palette and select all unused. And we're going to click delete. And that'll get rid of all the superfluous colors. The next thing I'm going to want to do is start to convert these over. If I already know, for instance, that my type, which I've highlighted here, is going to be, we'll say blue, I'll select this color with none of my dialog boxes selected already. Nothing on the document view is selected. I'm going to click OK. Sorry, in the swatches, I'm going to click on the ink and I'm going to click delete. And now it's going to ask me what I want to replace that swatch with. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say I want to replace it with that Pantone blue. We're going to click OK. And now you'll notice everything that was previously magenta is now this blue. So I'm going to want to do that for the other colors as well. In this case, these are this green. We'll see if this one is as well. And for this one, I want to make a new combination, a new green out of this yellow and blue. And in order to do that, I need to create something that's called a new mixed ink swatch. And I'm going to call this Riso Green, just so I can keep track of it. And down here, I'm going to select that I want it to be partly blue and partly green. And then I'm going to adjust these levels to something that is quite a bit more green. And again, this isn't going to make the best approximation of what the risograph is actually going to spit out. For that, in 105, there are some color charts where you can see these colors combined. But as I think about it more, I might decide that I want this to be actually a little bit teal and quite a bit of yellow. We're going to make kind of a camouflage green. I'm going to click OK, and here it is. So now when I select this, I'm going to click Riso Green, and it is now in that specific green. I'm going to select these two colors and delete them and swap them out with teal. And I'm going to select this teal, this cyan, which is, I believe, these dots right here, and I'm going to delete it and replace it with blue. We'll click OK. So now if I need to verify where all these colors live and what's what, I can come up here to the output, drop out, fly out, and go to separations preview. And then over here, click separations, and I'm going to click on teal and see where that one is. And this will happen occasionally. I'm glad it did, so I can address how to hang with it when it actually does. As I mentioned in class, Photoshop is pretty bad about reconciling colors across the different programs. And so we'll talk about how to deal with this. Even though right now it's on two separate layers, we can merge those when we actually go to print our separations. So you can see that if I turn black on, for instance, nothing comes on. If I turn yellow on, there we go, we have kind of a duplicate there. And when I turn on magenta, nothing is there. So we're all set. You can't really get rid of the CMYK colors in your separations. So if they don't appear here, they're likely not going to be here, but I just always kind of double check out of habit. I'll turn on all the colors again so I can see them. So now we should be all ready to print. So the next thing I'm going to do is come up here, we're going to click print booklet. Excuse me, this is just what we would do if we were going to print these for the dummies. You're going to make sure it's a PostScript file, 2-up saddle stitch. We're going to make sure print blank printer spreads is on. We're going to come over to preview. That's looking pretty decent. We're going to go to print settings, and I'm going to select a device so I can have some more control. I'm going to click print blank pages, which is going to paginate things better for me. We're going to set this to centered. I'm going to go to marks and bleed, put in crop marks, and then again we're going to add page information so that we do the separations. We can tell which belongs to which. I'm going to change my offset to 3 points. And then under output, this is where we do what we came to do. Under composite CMYK, we're going to hit separations. And then I'm going to turn off the inks all but a single color. Now this is where you can reconcile, say, a process yellow and a yellow being on two separate channels. If I turn both those on, it's going to create one plate for both those colors. Normally you wouldn't want to do that, but because we intend for them to be handled all with that single Riso yellow, we want to do that. In this case, we'll do the same for teal as well. So we're going to click OK. And you can see there's our spreads. I'm going to click print, and we'll call this Colex Video Yellow, since I already have them. And we'll click save. And it's going to look like it's printing, but of course it's just going to a PostScript file. We're going to do that again quickly. Print settings. And we're going to go to output. We're going to unselect that one. Hit both of the teals. Click OK. Click print. We'll call this video teal. Click save. We still need to do this for blue. Okay, so now we're going to go to where that lives, which should be on the desktop. We're going to grab our 3 generated PostScript files, excuse me, and I'm going to click open with, and I'm just going to click Acrobat Distiller. You can do this through Preview, and that's fine, but Distiller seems to be much more linear move. It's designed to literally do what we're asking it to do. So here we go. They're all set, and we now have 3 brand new PDFs that we can preview. So I'm going to grab these PDFs because for the risograph, it being kind of an antiquated piece of technology, we have to revert these back to PDF 4. So I'm going to right click on these and open it with Adobe Acrobat, and we're going to make use of something called Preflight. This is really handy for a lot of things. You can save into previous versions. I'll show you some other options, but you go to Edit and then Preflight, and it'll pull up the Preflight dialog box. So if you ever end up with a PDF that is 40, 50, 60 gigabytes, obviously that's megabytes, maybe gigabytes. That's a problem for any sort of quick viewing. It's pretty bloated. Printing is going to take longer than it needs. You can actually come in here and select digital printing black and white, digital printing color, and control with a lot of granularity how those are going to be output and saved, and really fix them in terms of file size. You can make them very much optimized. In our case, we want to select Acrobat 4 and click Analyze and Fix. And we're going to click Save. And in our case, actually, I'll amend the file name to Blue 4 so we know it's the 4 version. We'll click Save. And we'll click that. I'm going to close that one out. Do the same thing here, Preflight, select 4, Analyze and Fix. And so here it is. So this is what we use to print from the risograph computer, these PDF 4s. So that's what you'll need to bring into class on Monday. Let me know if you have any questions in Slack. Thanks.